Hello, everyone. Here we are. And we're at, where are we? Small Time in Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
My name's Evelyn Morris. We're here today to talk about home recording. But before we do, I think it's important to just first of all acknowledge the theft of the land that we're meeting on today. It's land that belongs to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I actually travelled here today from Bunurong land because that's where I sleep and work. And I just think that if we're going to talk about home recording on this land, we need to be aware of who owns it and how. Myself, especially, I'm very complicit in all of my music practices because I've benefited from colonisation. And yeah, much respects to elders and to all the activists and musicians from First Nations groups who've come along over the years, including Will on our panel. He's a gubby man, and that's it. Do you want to add anything? Anyone? No.
Thanks for having us here and pay our respects.
Yeah. Cool. So do you want to introduce yourselves? No.
No.
Okay. So that's a firm no. I'm getting there. This is down the end. We have Raquel Solier, also known as Various Asses.
That's me.
An amazing electronic artist, if you ask me, and incredible drummer. That I've known you for how long?
20 years. It actually has been 20 years.
That's amazing.
Something like that, maybe.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much.
And next to Raquel, we have Will.
Hi.
Hi. And you perform under the name of Diimpa.
Yes.
And I would say your music, well, how would you describe your music? Because I don't, or is that an annoying question?
A little bit.
Yeah, it is.
But I would sort of describe it as like minimalist, sort of classical leaning, but also with like sort of experimental edges.
Yeah, that's so how I read it as well. And that feels really similar to the way that I kind of approach my own music as well.
Oh.
So lovely to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making time for us. And Anika? I didn't say either of your last names.
That's okay.
That's a bit rude. I don't even know if I know your last names. Great research, Ev.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay, good. So, Anika, you play under the name of Hachiku, and your music's... You do it. I'm not doing it.
No, I hate doing it.
Yeah, okay, well, it's good. Okay. It's real good. And we are label mates. We both do stuff on Milk Records. And, yeah. You want to add anything? I was trying to do this so it isn't awkward, and I've made it way more awkward.
Yeah, I never know how to. I always go like, oh, it has Casio keyboards, and I sing, and I play guitar, and then that's it.
Well, I would say that your music's also like very polyphonic and has this kind of sparkle about it that I'm really into. So today we want to talk about home recording, but I guess like not just home recording as in like what mics we use and what stuff we use, but also, you know, stuff like what brought us to doing home recording and why it feels better for us to do it that way sometimes. So I might start by telling a little bit about myself, which is I started doing home recording when I was 23 and I'm 38 now, so I don't know maths, but that's a long time. And I started with a 4-track in my bedroom at the time. And every time I've made music since, I move house and then I get a new set of sounds. And I'm really into that. But also, I do work in studios as well, and I find them a little bit terrifying because there is this energy of like, do you know what the numbers are for this microphone? And, you know, what are you supposed to do with that compressor? I feel like I'm going to be tested at any moment. So I'm quite happy recording at home and having my own little bubble. But what about you, Raquel? What brought you to home?
Hi.
So I should have given you a look first.
Yeah, it's good. I'm paying attention. Home recording. I feel like I have been in and out of studios and have the privilege of that for quite a while now, just via some bands that I've played in. and then having the budget to be able to afford that. It's very expensive, obviously. Yeah, and then I thought that was what I was supposed to do as I started to make my own music, solo stuff. And I very quickly realized that I can't afford it. It's very daunting, and there's a lot of pressure.
For sure.
Yeah, so I had weird situations where I tried a couple of different spaces, and one worked really well, but it happened to be really close to a bar, and so a recording session would just be a big party, and that was not great after a year. And another one, so I tried to relocate, and I found that the vibe was very broy and cold, and I didn't realize it at the time. I found that as a reflection on myself not being able to kind of work in that environment. But once I just called it quits, I ended up going home from that point and just working from my bed on a laptop.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, it wasn't me. Like, and since then I've actually been kind of, I've surprised myself with the quality of stuff that has happened in my home now that I've just let all of that go, and just have a little bit more faith in your own abilities and kind of letting go of, I guess, this mentality that everything has to be nice mics and perfectly set up and you're not supposed to hear the tram going past or things like that. But in fact, if you have a great idea, that's really all you need. And
totally.
Yeah, and people have been doing that, not having access for studios for so long, and have been making music that is so much better than all of ours. Sorry, like that we're just no, but it is this preconceived idea that you need to be having access to these expensive things that is just not possible for a lot of people.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I feel like I can definitely relate to almost all of those things. Like, I've never had a recording space above a bar, but I feel like as I bartended for a good 15 years, and I know what you mean. You're like, I'll just have a couple of beers, But what about, am I going to keep going in order? What do you feel, you guys?
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So my history with recording has always been very limited. My first record, I actually recorded on my laptop microphone.
Neat.
Amazing.
And so there's a whole bunch of hisses and like all that noise stuff that comes, and just bad quality that comes with a laptop microphone. But I edited the bejeebers out of it and sort of made it this weird... it sort of made it sound different than what the actual instrument was, because I was recording like accordions and glockenspiel and things like that. And I felt like, and even to this day, I've never recorded anything in like a proper studio before. And I feel like that's definitely helped me figure out just sort of being on my toes and dealing with what I have and stuff, I've never been very financially well off or anything like that, so I've just sort of always sort of relied on the care of others as well to like borrow equipment and things like that. So
Huge.
I've been very thankful for that in the past.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid I'm a bit of a Luddite on this panel, and I apologise.
What do you mean?
I'm not very technological.
No, but see, like that's I think
all,
the key is that I think then becomes part of your sound, and like it makes it unique, and that's really great. You shouldn't.
I'm not apologising for it.
Yeah, definitely do
fact
not.
Of life, but,
because I also think that like. You're only a Luddite for so long. Eventually, it's like you just start to really take it all on, and it's just like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can relate to a lot of that as well. And
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Why is it considered to be a Luddite if you've never picked up, equipment before? Like, really, recording is simply capturing a sound, no matter how you do it or anything like that.
Well, because it requires technology, and that's what the sort of Luddite movement was all about.
That's true.
Fighting against the technological age back in like the 18th century, I think it started.
Cool.
But
What is it? I guess you're not... Does this is technical. Does recording mean you have to have that forever, or can it be like something that's reflected back to you, I wonder?
What do you mean?
Well, isn't there in the Mayan civilization there was stairs, and if you clapped, it would clap back at you and things like that. And
and stuff. Yeah, like acoustics
like,
and things.
Yeah, okay, so that's more acoustics and recording, I guess. Yeah, I was just.
I love that
like,
though. It's like that's like a really early style of recording. Is just hearing it come back to you the first time.
Yeah,
because I do think there's something magical in the moment where you hear something back the first time that you've made, and you go, oh, I know exactly what I want to do now, or like, oh, this sounds dreadful, or like I think hearing yourself back in a space that you're comfortable is like very much one of the things I love about home recording. And what about you, Anika?
Me, I guess my background is I actually studied biology and did a whole degree in biology, and at some point decided I actually want to do music. So I think especially at the start it was quite an insular practice for me. Like I didn't really have many friends that were musicians. It was all like these distant idols of like famous American bands where I'd be like, they're so cool, I want to do that. And I think one, being not in a music scene in Germany or wherever I was living, just made me focus a lot around what I could do with what I got, which was, I think, similar to you, just like a laptop and small interface. And just a lot of it was imitating very impressive other musicians and trying to do what they were doing. And I think for me, took quite a long time to have confidence in your abilities, that you're not constantly questioning what you're doing is like a valid thing, because you're like, I didn't go to a fancy studio and my microphone costs $70 and not $500. But I feel like the more everything I've released so far, I've recorded myself. And I think with the EP, that was 4 years ago, you feel a bit more like a fraud still. You're like, I didn't know how to use a mic preamp, so I recorded my vocals 9 times. And I think it's good to keep in mind that the person listening to the music, they just hear the final product. They don't, or not product, but, like song. They don't hear what you did and how you did it. And I think with the album we just released, the more feedback you get of people being like, oh, where did you record this, and with your band and this and that, and you're like, in your head you're like, oh, it's actually, I was just sitting in the corner of like my bedroom with a tiny like drum. And you get more confident the more you do it.
Totally.
Which is a nice thing.
I actually just remembered that the first time I ever recorded at home, I didn't have like a computer at all. I just used the 4-track, and then I borrowed a friend's dad's CD burner that was like separate from a computer, and just burned directly to the CDs. And then my phone made that like on the master, and I didn't realize because I wasn't really listening back. And then now that's just forever in that EP, and I was like really bummed about it. But then my friend said, like that's going to be a cool thing in the future when that sound is not around anymore. Everyone's going to go, oh yeah, I remember that sound. It's nice, like a little document of time. So yeah, I think that gives us, I feel like we all come from different kind of musical backgrounds-ish though, right? Like maybe us three are pretty similar, but Raquel, you're much more in the...
bit of a weirdo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We're all weirdos, don't worry about that. But I feel like yours is more of an electronic practice, and I'm always really curious about electronic music because I just don't really know enough about it. But yours, whenever I hear it, I'm just like, oh my God. Like, get really into it. And you told me that you use a lot of samples and stuff from like YouTube and cool stuff like that.
I do sneaky things. I love a YouTube sample. I don't really like to hear things clean with the particular kind of club music I make, I think, because there has to be a bit of an abrasive energy to it. And so when things have been like hyper compressed and shoved on YouTube and stuff, I really like it. It's really harsh. It's soothing for me. Yeah. But I've done weird things where I've hid my phone in my pocket and recorded my family having conversations. I
love that.
And that's amazing because obviously when you hear that kind of recording back, it's very clearly a phone recording, and that adds a layer of intimacy to that in a way that you shouldn't be hearing almost. Yeah, so I feel like with the electronic music I make, it's all about not making it sound nice and not making it sound like it's in a fancy DAW. If anything, I use Fruity Loops, which is like not the cleanest output.
But it's really got the coolest name.
It's got the
Fruity Loops.
I'll just say FL. But it sounds really crunchy, and it's just really it's got an edge to it.
I think there's something that I like about that as well, because it does also feel like you're kind of documenting digital culture in a way. You're kind of taking things from the internet, it's these digital sort of smushed up files, and
man screams at egg. That's in my records.
Because I always love it when you put like a sample from a song that I really, really, really know, and then it just gets like smushed up in the song, and it's very cool. I'm a big fan.
I don't really do that anymore. I tried not to do that.
Oh,
with
really?
The new record, yeah.
Sorry, I haven't updated my.
No one's heard it yet.
Okay, good.
No, but what is fascinating for me personally on this new record is I tried to do essentially an orchestral club record. So when you were mentioning classical leaning and stuff, I was like, oh, maybe I get to huddle up with you guys now. Where I just forked out for a contact. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I love
I've
strings.
got one of those too.
They're amazing. And, you know, it wasn't cheap, but it was definitely worth the investment. And now I feel like, I don't know. Like
for anyone listening, a contact, well, is it like the actual sampler or is it the keyboard? Or
I just use their samples.
Yeah.
So I've got it all,
cool,
but I
cool,
just
cool.
go into the files and steal them as though I'd be taking something off YouTube.
Totally, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like the same. So yeah, it's like a sampling library, I guess, and you can get kind of anything you want, ever, anything you imagine.
But you also have a lot of control, like so when I was using a lot of string sections and choirs and stuff, and to be able to kind of go in there and like make imaginary people by, placing one person to the left and the mic is going to be over here. It's all these simple things and now that I'm getting the record mix and hearing it back, I'm like, whoa, this sounds like really pro.
Sweet.
It's amazing. And I've done it from my bed.
I cannot wait to hear that.
It's all these things that were never available to us anymore that suddenly, we can get our hands on. So.
Yeah, I do. I use a lot of those kind of sample libraries for soundtracking, and it's it really does change. You can really present yourself as like a pro. Yeah. Don't tell anyone that I'm not. Technically not. But like I think blurring the lines of what's like professional and what's quote unquote amateur or like home. I used to get a lot of talk from older dudes in music, cis white dudes, who would be like, oh, you're like a bedroom artist. You know, it was this term that was very like, that's nice kind of. And I still carry a little bit of that like embarrassment. Do any of you feel that as well?
I did an interview with a German journalist recently, and they felt really offended that because in my bio it says bedroom producer, and they were like, why do you call yourself a bedroom producer? That like undervalues what you do. Like
but you're just reclaiming it.
I was like, I guess that it does make sense because people read it and it sounds like what you say, like amateur and not pro. I kind of appreciated that feedback too, though, because it's like
how you're being perceived.
You want people to take you seriously. But then bedroom music and bedroom pop has become its own genre of
what
it is. So it's like
I think
that has its own appeal, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that the way that SoundCloud music has kind of changed things as well. Some artists have come out of SoundCloud that are just like next level, and everyone's like, oh, maybe it's fine to do it at home now. And I haven't quite updated my deep insecurities, but I'll get there eventually. But what about you? Do you feel any of that sort of like, because you said before you don't say the word like Luddite thinking that you're not good at music.
No.
You say it like that's a thing you're into.
Yeah like it's just me and technology just don't get along very well.
Oh my gosh.
We've gone on several dates together. It was a weird, awkward night in bed, and I had to go. No, it's it's definitely been a learning curve. I mean, I have also recently completed a Bachelor of Music at VU as well, so I definitely learnt like a whole bunch of stuff from there. Like beforehand, I'd be playing instruments like accordion and things like that that are really weirdly difficult to mic.
Yes.
Especially when, you know, the sound comes out of multiple places and it's a mystery. So definitely, uni definitely helped with figuring out how to capture sound properly.
Yeah.
For different instruments. And just tying back into that like lo-fi thing as well, I feel like it's really has like quite sexist connotations as well.
For sure, yeah.
Like a lot of synth history as well has been pioneered by women and people of colour, and I feel like calling people like bedroom artists and stuff.
Yeah, like, I know exactly
especially
what
when
you
you
mean.
meet like men engineers and stuff, and they I've noticed in situations and stuff, just like if I'm with like women or something like that, like a lot of engineers and things will treat them differently.
For
and
sure.
It's just like noticing that as well.
We all get
stuff.
sorry for talking over you a little bit at the end, but we all get that thing that's happened a million times to all of us, I'm sure, of like, you know, you get mistaken for the person delivering food or like, I don't know, the person who's here to visit their boyfriend or something. But thankfully that hasn't happened as much in recent years to me, but definitely used to. But I also just think that a lot of that kind of coding of like whose space this isn't even that. It's not very overt. It's like often really subtle, and even just the names of microphones is something that I always come back to. We were just talking before we went on air that I call these microphones, that's Michael Jackson and this is Stevie Nicks, because I cannot ever for the life of me remember the names. And Stevie Nicks used to use this microphone live, and Michael Jackson used that one on Thriller. So that's really all I need to know. But whenever I'm in the studio, I sometimes work in a shared studio, and I borrow the mics, and I go in and I'm like, can I have the one that looks like a tube with the fluffy end? And then they'll say a series of numbers to me, and I'm like, I don't know, I think so. But I think that also goes down to like the fact that it is a little bit ableist as well, to like not have ways of replacing names of things or using your own terminology in certain spaces, because as an autistic person I can't, like, numbers are just not for me, they're not my vibe. But let me get back on track.
I like to think of the mics as like the least breakable one of these two.
Yeah.
And if I had to choose, I'm going to be like, go with that one.
I'll go with the one that's not going to cost me much more to repair later on. Totally.
And then just avoid ribbon mics. Like
forever.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm definitely going to put phantom power through that. Like, there's no doubt it's going to happen. But yeah, borrowing equipment as well, I think is a special situation because it kind of creates community around your work as well. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? You don't have to. I can just leave.
Yeah, I think it should happen more. I think
totally.
There should be more community around sharing equipment, and like there should be library. Like I think the libraries do have like limited like tech. Like they do. I think libraries now have like video cameras and things like that you can borrow, which is really cool. I'm not entirely sure about music equipment though, but yeah, I think it should be definitely more of a thing where. Because like otherwise, then every musician out there has to spend like $500 on their own setup, when like
when we're making
and then shared and stuff.
Yeah, we're not necessarily making a lot of money from Spotify or any of that stuff. So it's like where is that money supposed to come from? Except for our other jobs, which necessarily we'll have to have. And I'm not complaining about that really, because I think that the freedom of recording at home, it like lets me question capitalism and speak to capitalism in my own way, rather than feeling like I have to mold to it. Am I? What do you think? What do you think about that?
I think it's great that I can like make an album and not have to take out a $30,000 loan and find like a major label or some other person to give me money to do something like I think the first EP cost me $500 to make, because all I did was pay for the master. Like all the vocals I recorded, I was doing like an exchange at Melbourne Uni, and I was doing one breath subject at BCA, and once a week I got to hire out a microphone, so all the vocal recordings were on like a hired uni microphone.
Nice.
And same with the album we did, it's like it feels freeing to be able to put your money towards a music video that you'll enjoy for the rest of your life. Maybe if you like it, or if you don't like it, you don't. But yeah, like having that freedom to not need to be super rich to create art.
I mean, it's not something that any of us probably can change easily. But I think for me, because my dad grew up really poor, I grew up okay. Like, we had middle class kind of upbringing. But he handed down the frugal mindset so hard that I just can't really... But I apply for grants now and stuff. Have any of you ever gone for grants and tried that stuff out?
Yes.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. It
but
is
of
pretty...
an era when we're trying to elevate certain people. But prior to that, it didn't work.
Totally.
To be honest, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is really... I feel like all of the bigger orgs are starting to step up a bit with diversity, which is nice. Anyways, I feel like I'm talking too much.
No.
What about... let's see. Oh, yeah. One thing I was wondering about, and I have trouble with this myself, is how to decide on home life versus recording life. Like, how do you separate time? How do you split up? Because I'll often... It's nice, like you and I have spoke about before, Raquel, that you can just have a nap sometimes, like, which is maybe the most awesome thing about recording at home. But also... It's hard to stay focused sometimes. Do any of you find that? Or do you have, like, rituals that get you from one space to the other? Or
No, I'm, like, the most chaotic person ever.
Me too.
Work at, like, 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 7 a.m. or, like, yeah, I don't have a good balance for that.
No, I'm the same. I've literally fallen asleep with the keyboard in my bed. I think I probably snuggled it at some point. That space, that line between the spaces, I think is blurred, which can be like both a blessing and a curse. Because it's like, because it's so easy just to like set up and record and do all that sort of stuff, but also there's no line, like you don't travel from your house to a place. Yeah. Which can be like psychological, like that psychological change of changing place and stuff can be tough.
Yeah, that's true.
Sometimes I like it because being like self-managed for our band and having to do a lot of admin stuff, I try to at least do a little bit of music every day, where even if I spend 8 hours a day doing admin, if at the end of the day I can just, even if it's half an hour, just do something. Yeah. That's, I think, works better for me than having like a dedicated space where I have to commute and... every time I've ever had a hired space, I feel guilty when I'm not there as well. So, because I'm like, I'm paying money for it. But you also, Raquel, you have to deal with the added aspect of parental time.
Responsibilities.
Yes.
And so I'm a parent, and we are in a small apartment. We only just afforded a 2-bedroom apartment with our family. Yeah. Which is fine. I grew up with, I've had many households, but one of them was like a household that housed 7 children in a 2-bedroom apartment in Brunswick. So we're doing great. I find it really difficult because I don't have a space technically necessarily that's mine, and I don't really have that much time to go away. So I might only have 10 minutes to work on something, but you go in there with like, it's almost like you spend the day preparing for that 10 minutes and you know exactly what you're doing when you're going in there, which is a benefit. So at times 2 minutes of travel of 10 minutes, like I just couldn't afford it, which sounds so crazy, but it's just I have a small child, so it's like craziness. Anyway, but using it to your advantage where I might have 10 minutes and I might work on something and I'm like, after that I have to sleep. I have to get some sleep in. Yeah. And half an hour goes by and maybe I've made an amazing contribution and that's the give or take. Or 2 minutes has gone by and I have cuddled my computer. I've woken up with my computer on me many times.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, that to me is just an environment that fosters intimacy, and you have to be relaxed and yourself on your recordings at home, which is, I feel like, the complete opposite when you're in a studio and you're paying a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
And I think you said it before, like every time you move, the sounds change with you. Like, I feel like having recorded lots of the album in like my parents' house in Germany, or at the milk warehouse, or my bedroom in Northcote, like depending on what room you're in, you have a different keyboard available, you have a different mic, you have a different, just I think the logistics of your environment influence a lot. Like even I have a tiny MIDI keyboard that's like 2 octaves.
I love those little ones.
Yeah, but what you play on it is you're never going to play more than 2 octaves because you're like and then the other day I was in the studio with like a proper full scale thing, and suddenly you're like going anywhere, and those things that unconsciously you don't think about, but
like limitations that
like sometimes those parameters can breed good things.
Totally. I feel like the loop pedal was my first proper like limitation. And I really just like, now I'm like that with every piece of gear. I push it to the furthest amount of its limits, every piece of gear that I ever have or borrow. And then I'm like, okay, I'll move on to another piece of gear now. It's just like one step at a time. Do any of you have a favorite piece of gear or microphone or plug-in or...
My laptop is great. That's all I need.
You don't have any favorite plugins though? I love giving people plug-in hints.
Though? There's like,
well, like I have a favorite reverb, and
so
I have
effects,
a favorite compressor, and I have like a favorite.
I think my favorite plugins are creative ones where it kind of, because if you're an artist that's working by yourself, you don't often have the experience of bouncing ideas and feeding on that energy.
True.
And so I play with weird plugins that just will throw something at me, and then I'll be like, okay, I don't like it, but actually maybe I should do it this way. Or, and I think that's one thing to also bring up is like, just because we make music at home, we also are kind of expected to mix it and all those things, but we don't have to know that, and we don't have to know what a reverb is.
Yeah. Totally.
So for anyone that wants to embark on this stuff, it's more like consciously let that go and just work with whatever's there, and all you need to do is capture a sound, and that's your job is done.
And use your ears and your feelings and your body, like listen to what works. I think there's so much about that process that I've found really healing as well, like connecting to like what do I like? Like what am I into, without worrying about what a producer thinks is good or what a bandmate thinks is good or whatever. Yeah,
we're lucky that like there's a lot more information available in regards to recording techniques and things like that. Like I've definitely definitely learnt a lot from just looking up how to self-master and things like that. And it's like it may not be like as great as a studio mastering, but it certainly gets the job done. I think
it can be too. Like but, I really think. Yeah. Sorry, you keep
and then
going.
I was going to say that like, but also it can be limiting as well, because it's their opinion.
For sure.
You know, so like it's not verbatim. You always have to take that information with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've definitely done like professional drum recordings once in my life, and I hated how they sounded. It was like, okay, like I
drums
think just
are hard.
because,
they're really hard.
Yeah, just because someone is professional in a professional studio never means necessarily that you're gonna love it. And in terms of what you said with plugins, like I only started in First ISO last year. Was the first time I properly sat down to like figure out that you can get more than the Logic stock-in plugins.
Oh yeah, I used them for ages as well.
Before that, it's like there's a compressor there, there's a reverb there. They do the job. Like they're maybe not as fun as like Sound Toys or the other ones that make it look like it's from the 80s. But
yeah. And it's like, I think the other thing that's cool about that is that, like you said, you were trying to emulate people whose music you really loved. So then when you have those stock plugins that might not sound exactly like that, you then have to kind of challenge yourself to find what about this plugin is not doing what they're doing, and what about this. I just think it's a cool, like, it just really engages my curiosity every step of the way. And I think I lost my train of thought. But what else were we going to talk about? We were going to talk about the fact that you can explore freely. We sort of covered that, didn't we? You're all looking at me really panicked. You're like, steer the ship, Evelyn, steer it. Actually, I was going to say, on the matter of learning things from the internet, who has a really good YouTube tutorial impersonation? Because I do.
You do. Yeah.
Do it.
No, I'm not going to do it. All right, maybe I will. I just wanted to shout out to the fact that watching YouTube tutorials can sometimes be the most agonizing experience of your life. Have you ever had those moments where you're like, when is he going to get to the fact?
You know you can speed it up though.
Yeah,
I know,
watch
but
everything double speed.
But really?
Yeah.
It makes the
and you go to the
music sound really
comments.
fun.
I think the double speed makes me
Yeah.
stressed. I'm like, it's going too fast.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
miss it or something.
Yeah, and
So
true,
then-
in the comments, someone goes like, it starts at 5 minutes.
Oh,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
need that tip. Starts at comment. Oh, yeah, and that's something else I was going to say is that, like, every time I have worked in a studio setting and talked to other engineers who are quote-unquote professional and, you know, I've been perceived as that in a studio setting, all of us are always also like, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Like, we're always all like, you know, you can try as best as you can, but you're still going to make mistakes and you're still going to do it all totally wrong sometimes, you know? So I don't think there is like a standard of what's right.
I mean, even if you're paying for an expensive record, you're always going to come away from it being like, that bit sucks.
Yes.
I've moved on from this.
Exactly.
So just do it without spending all the money. Do
Yeah.
it from home. No matter what you do, you're always going to learn and grow and move forward and reflect on that and be like, this is what I can do better next time. Or
Because I think, like, with every recording, I think there's an aspect of disappointment.
definitely.
No true words have ever been said.
Like,
A
you know,
breakdown and disappointment.
yeah, like you're pushing for the sound, and like whatever you do, I think there's always just going to be something where you're like, oh, something was a bit off, or it didn't quite go like the way that I planned.
Oh, why didn't
or
I do
like
one more
something-
vocal take? It would have been so fun.
Yeah,
Just sort of like that one pop on the mic, I could have got rid of it. Yeah, it's funny too because sometimes you just get stuck on a type of recording where you go like, that's it. It's just that now. That's what it is, and it doesn't feel right to change it. But the other thing I did want to talk about is like, because Raquel, you mentioned that there's sort of also a spiritual aspect to doing music for you, or like a connection to family and stuff. And I wanted to chat about how that is, you know, aided by working at home.
Well, that's not going to happen in someone else's house, is it?
No.
Like,
It's pretty obvious, really.
yeah, I think it's more, you know, I carry all of that with me at all times, my ancestors and the things that the work they've put in so I could be here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know how to do it's such a weird thing to explain. Explain
Totally.
to me how you bring the spirits into the room.
Spirituality
Like,
is
telling ancestors and things. Like,
it's not
Yeah.
it's not really a talking thing, is it? It's a feeling thing.
Well, it's
but-
a feeling thing,
Yeah.
and you can't always create that vibe, but maybe it's more in reflection, where it's like you've done something, you've surprised yourself, the outcome, and you've had this weird sense of like there's something there that's like, well, that was meant to be, or that was happening, and yeah, it's often in hindsight, I think. I read something about this Bartok, like traditional tattooist practice, and he was talking about how just like if you're going about your day and you're doing something and you have just this thought of maybe I should just go this way or do something, what we perceive that as our regular thought processes, he was explaining that's like your ancestors kind of guiding you or saying you should do this.
Yeah.
And I find with recording sometimes that happens. I'll just be like, something's telling me I should just do this thing, and I look back and like, that's not just me. I'm not taking credit for that. Like,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's so lovely. I feel like I definitely do refer to that as like instinct or connection to universe or something
Yeah,
else. But
what
it's-
is instinct? Like,
exactly? Yeah, I love that. Is that similar? Is that something that you feel as well, Will? Or?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially performing, which I'm so thankful that we get to do again.
Yeah.
I think more so through performance, I think that I channel my ancestors and stuff because it's like a it's a ceremony really in a sense. Like it's energy and all that sort of stuff, and it's creation as well. I definitely affiliate creation with ancestors and with spirits as well.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, definitely in the studio and stuff. Like your flow can be guided and channeled by ancestors and people who've come before you.
That's really nice. I'm going to think about that a bit more as well, I think. Do you have any feelings about that as well?
I think for me, maybe the equivalent, which isn't the same at all, but I think when it comes to lyric writing for me, that is a very, maybe I refer to it more as like subconscious, like things where I don't know how something is coming out of me or why, but suddenly you have like a line there and you're like, maybe even 6 months later or 2 years later, you're like, that makes sense. But
that happens to me a lot.
Process of it, it's like,
because your family lives overseas as well, right?
Yeah.
So do you ever use, is music ever sort of a way to like reconnect to a feeling of family because they're away?
Definitely.
Or, yeah.
Like I think one song on our album, I used all their first letters of all my favorite family members and
cute.
put it into like a weird line that now sounds like a different language. But
did anyone notice that they were left off?
Yeah, that would be such a risk.
Parents, luckily, all my family, all of them start with AN. Like my mother, father, sister. I put in my grandfather, my grandmother, and my dog.
Nice.
And beautiful. That was it.
Oh yeah, pets and home recording. That's a thing.
Oh my god, my pet is on my home recording. He's not with us anymore, but he's on there.
Oh, my dog barked in. I made him bark because I was like, he was really sick. So I was like, I want to capture his bark in it. So he was like, woof, 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 woof. And then he was like, wah. And now in like one of the songs, it's like a lot of delay, a lot of reverb, but it was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
That's exactly what I did on this new
record.
Oh,
really? Oh my God, I love that.
It's nothing original. It's just really heartfelt.
Yeah. You know? What do they call that? The like zeitgeist or whatever. It's everyone's doing the thing.
Yeah, I love those videos of people capturing their cat snoring, but they add just like all the reverb, and it sounds like
or the
really
farts
haunting.
As well. The farts of a dog. I think that's my fave.
I put my mother emptying the dishwasher because it had like a lot of glasses going like cling, cling, cling. And I was in the background recording, and now in the outro, it just adds a lot of atmospheric ambience of like, no one will be able to tell what it is, but you're like,
yeah, like the secrets in the song.
Yeah.
I definitely remember where I've lived based on songs that I've made. Because I find it really hard to remember the sequence of time, you know. So, like, if I'm trying to figure out where was I living in such and such a year, I'll be like, oh, I put out that album, so let's listen back to that.
Yeah,
and I can
records
remember.
are like a capturing time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's maybe my favourite use of them, for sure. Like, they can kind of be anything, right? But the other thing is that I stress so much about not being able to stay in the same home for a long time. There was so many years where I was like 6 months in one share house, then I had to move, or like a year in another one, got kicked out because they needed to use the landlord wanted to repurpose it or whatever. And my mum was also without a home for 2 years, and I couldn't find a home for her. So there was all this like home stuff that was really like, once I started getting back into recording at home, I was like, this is a way to repurpose the bad feelings I have about housing, the bad feelings of like, where am I going to be next year? Where am I going to be in a year? Does any of that resonate for you? Anyone?
I've definitely, in terms of, I've moved around a bit before settling here recently, and the decisions I make in terms of equipment is always needs to be I need to be able to put it in one backpack to like take it, and none of my microphones are worth more than $140, and I only have 2 track channels because I'm not going to set up a big mixing desk or anything somewhere. Just I feel like I always had that if I get attached to a place, then I don't want to go away.
Right.
So I'd rather have everything so I can take it quickly. Makes it easier to move on.
Yeah. I was in Los Angeles for most of last year during COVID. Does anyone want to talk about COVID, or is it too boring?
I don't mind.
Okay. Because while I was there, I had received a grant to be over there to do recording work, but I couldn't use the studios that I was planning on using. So I just bought a set of monitors and a subwoofer and just like went to town with all that. But then once I was selling them at the end, some dude on Reverb like kind of scammed me. and the monitors ended up broken. And that sort of like reinforced this feeling of like you can't own too many things. If you own things, you're risking a lot. You know?
You need to get insurance.
Yeah, and especially moving around as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of equipment can be very heavy and.
But did anyone's practice like change during COVID time, or was it just much of the same? Because I guess we're just where we usually are.
Mine completely nosedive.
Oh, really?
Nosedove.
Dived.
During COVID, yeah, just.
Yeah, right.
Just didn't do anything like creative or anything, just because I get a lot of energy from community and a lot of energy from and inspiration from community as well. Like I think, I definitely get a lot of inspiration from the scene, from music and around, and I think that COVID definitely restricted that, and especially getting energy from performing as well.
For sure.
So my creative practice sort of just went.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah,
and did you feel okay about it, or were you like, this sucks?
It was all right, I guess, because it was time off, but also, felt very unproductive.
Yeah,
that's me.
I know what you mean. I feel the same. I always like have to be doing something. But I think it is a bit of a falsehood in some ways that we're all supposed to have made a lockdown album.
Oh, yeah.
And like the actual thing of that is that like, no, psychologically we're all dealing with the same circumstances, even if we all record at home. Did you do any recording over?
I was maybe the most productive I've ever been, I think.
Good for you. No,
I
not like that's not one experience. It's millions of experiences.
That was the time when I really got into the plugin world, downloaded like every free plugin I could find, all the standard ones that most people use, and started watching all the YouTube tutorials and mix with the masters, subscribe to that.
Oh, that's cool.
Subscribe to a sound gym where you can do daily exercises to improve your hearing.
Interesting.
There's another one called Tone Gym where you can do interval training and all that.
Oh, cool.
And I think, I get really distracted with, if I have to play shows, I have to play shows. If I have to go on tour, I do that. Where, like, having that mindset of, now I just want to become a professional producer.
Oh, yeah.
That was my ambition, so.
Yeah. That's amazing. It sounds like your confidence really grew as well with all that sort of research. And
I think the more you know that there's no right way to do it, and that a lot of the tutorials you watch by star producers that have done this and that, and you listen to it and you're like, I actually really dislike this.
Yeah.
You're like, it makes you feel a bit more confident that if they can do it, you can do it. That sounds mean, but
no, I think that makes sense. There's actually a producer I really love, engineer I really love, called Sylvia. Oh gosh, I'm not gonna.
Massey.
Yeah. Who did like Rage Against the Machine and all these bands that I'm not super into. Like I was when I was a teenager, but now I'm a bit like meh. But her YouTube videos are next level because she's like, you know, if you get a microphone that looks like a bullet, a shotgun bullet, it's very dangerous. And it really changes the way people play. And she has this process about like adventure recording where the whole idea is like just do whatever wacky thing you want to do in the studio because it'll like change the energy of the song. And it's definitely coming from a golden age of recording where they'd have budget to be able to just like throw a Marshall amp off a cliff or whatever.
Shoot a piano.
But I still think that her sentiment is kind of amazing, and she just seems like the way she describes the first type of delay that was ever made with a rubber hose is like, I watch it all the time, just like, you're amazing. Does anyone else have idols? Recording idols? She's not really a recording idol, but I like her energy.
She's an engineering idol. I'd say that, she's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Grimes as a producer.
Oh, cool.
Probably my favorite.
Yeah.
As a mixer, I really like Sean Everett.
Who's Sean Everett?
He has really Raquel. He did like the Perfume Genius.
Oh, neat.
records.
Great records, yeah.
Alabama Shakes.
Cool.
The Clyro record. He literally, like, I listened to an album, and if I really like the mix, and I usually look up who worked on it, he has mixed 90% of everything that I enjoy.
That's so cool.
Mm.
What about you, Raquel? Are there any people you look, not so much for recording, but like look up to in a music way?
I always love how people can capture a time and emotion, I think, in different ways. I don't necessarily like the studio album. We spoke earlier, I've forgotten, Triad God. Triad God is a Cantonese rapper who, actually poet, and who would sit in a cafe and record his poetry / rap into his iPhone or whatever he had. And then a producer would come along and like build music around that. And the quality in terms of like that professionalism is not there, but it added so much aesthetically and emotionally to that record, you know. And it's got these amazing like synthesized angels going on, and definitely one that I recommend people checking out. But things like that inspire me a lot, you know. It's like making the best of whatever is there, but not only that, but doing it in a way that's true to yourself, and no one can replicate that.
Yeah, it's so strange how that culture of recording rhetoric, we'll call it the bro culture of recording, the cis white bro, is like almost like you're supposed to sound like everyone else, but it's so much nicer to sound like yourself and like not trying to be everyone else. Because I think the thing that's cool about home recording is that even if you are trying to emulate your idols, which is totally fine, you know, you're going to make it sound weird. You're going to do your own weird thing to it. Yep. So it's like you don't even have to try to sound like yourself. You just do sound like yourself, which I think is a really cool thing.
Very wise.
Oh, thanks. Anything else to add to that sentiment?
Yeah, I think that with technological advances and stuff, like how, like with the internet, I think that that kind of sounding like yourself is even more important, because I think that a lot more artists are trying to emulate other artists, and what that can happen is like it's completely like drench the output of music to kind of sound the same. And I think like sounding like yourself is really important, like trying to emulate who you look up to, but also just putting your own spin on it. Like finding your own voice, I think, is really important in your own sound.
Yeah, and what better place to do that but at home?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure how much time we have, but one of my final questions was if you have any top tips for young punters. So like thinking about stuff that like when you started you wish you'd known, or bits of just cool tips that you've learned along the way. I know it's hard to summon them from nowhere, but I'm trying to think of one that I can offer first.
I think I'll jump in and be like, I feel like no matter what we've all learnt and how far we've come along, the thing that I've taken the most strength from and inspiration and growth from is just that, just letting go of the preconceptions and doing something. And this is for like anything in life. It's like literally just get in there and try it. And that's a really scary and impossible thing for some people. So trying it at home and shutting that bedroom door is kind of a really amazing environment to be like, that's your space, and whatever happens in that space doesn't need to leave that room, or you can capture it or you can let it go. But yeah, I think a lot of people, younger people that I talk to, are like, oh, I really wanted to do that thing, I can't do it. And it's like, why? You just building these things that are imaginary. And so as long as you let all of that go and you let go of the imposter syndrome and everything, and you just give it a go, no one has to know how that went. Just try that over and over again, repetition, you're going to get there.
Yeah.
It just takes practice.
Totally.
Really. I would say probably, like don't wait around for that. Like if you're wanting a certain like type of equipment or microphone or something like that. Like, don't be like, oh, I can't record this because of this. Like, I come from a very poor background as well. Like, all my laptops have been secondhand. And until recently, I wasn't able to afford even like good headphones and things like that. So I would say just like make it work.
Make it work,
as Tim would say. No, but like, but don't be put down by people who say, oh, you need this certain piece of equipment or you need that certain microphone to record it. It's like, play around with it and see. And like sometimes it may not work as well. And like you were saying, like practice as well. Like the more you do it.
I feel like adding on to that in a similar direction is like embracing the not actually knowing how to do something properly. I think sometimes gives you the most fun results.
It can be like really fun, like experimentation and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
in recording.
Like that time what I was saying with when I didn't know how to make my vocals loud enough because I didn't know what a preamp was and I didn't know what a compressor was, or that you could like gain raise the signal. And I ended up recording my vocals 9 times because it took 9 layered things to get to the volume I wanted. Made the vocals sound like the most fun, like delay, overdub, like wacky thing where I would have never done that if I had. Now I would never do it because I just put a compressor on it and put my input volume up. Yeah. But those sorts of things you only do right at the start.
Yeah.
Where once you know how, like you get into those patterns of I need to do it that way, where the most fun thing is to
not know
how to do it.
And I mean, I suppose you do still have that in your toolkit now as like something that you know sounds cool.
Yeah, now it's a bit more of a decision you make rather than a...
Yeah. I think also I really, the only thing I needed to be told at the beginning was like, if you're chasing a signal problem, a signal path problem, or if you're chasing a computer issue that you don't understand, the main thing is like patience. I actually got it tattooed on my arm because like having to do things step by step is the only way you'll figure it out. Like when somebody taught me that, because I would get with my imposter syndrome, I would get like, this isn't working. I'm doing something terribly wrong. I don't know how to do this, until I would go, all right, this is the first step in this chain. This is the second step. And it's really about learning how to remain grounded even when you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I also think that doing things in your own way and adapting against the odds of what this system wants for us is a very radical act. And I appreciate all of you for doing that. You know, I appreciate you for working on that imposter syndrome and like getting past it and like doing stuff that ultimately wasn't meant for us in some way, you know, whether it's because of our cultural background or whether it's because of gender or queerness or autism or any of the things. Us making music is very important, and I really appreciate that you all do.
And we're all very good at it.
Yeah,
so.
High fives. This is a real master team. So thanks so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate being here. I appreciate everyone sitting there and chat. We're in a bubble and it's pretty great. I don't know. I suppose they'll be able to see on the camera, won't they? On the online stream. 2021's real weird, hey. Thanks to the venue for having us. Thanks to Milk Records. Thanks to Brunswick Music Festival.
Thank you very much for having us as well, Evelyn.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.